that. This is Wiki. By the way, that was a Wiki article. You know that. That article was Wiki and Charissa. Cherise.
Thanks.
So that was such a good article.
I actually have a question about that. I was thinking about how, like, if we're trying to evade, if we have signs of overheating and we have about 2% and we risk hyperinflation, right? Which we're hopefully going to avoid with the stimulus package. What theoretically is the question I've been asking myself, and we talked about this at lunch, was that if the American economy, the U.S. economy should happen to hyperinflate, do we think that because we see a mirror effect kind of on the other side of the Chimerica engine, where our quantity easing and their quantity easing has been matched, do we think that hyperinflation, if it was something that came to pass, would also catch on the other side of China because they have a similar set of issues that we do? And if it did, I would hypothesize that your cave theory would actually crumble because there would be no more safe haven for any of us to hide.
I think before we got there, we would hit stagflation before we got into that.
You know what I mean? I'm sure, but like, it's kind of like I started to say like cause and effects, especially if we start talking about like the
So
interrelated
let's stick on track right now. Let's stick on track. So here we are. Stay with me now. So we did this kind of aggregate supply curve. Right? It was a horizontal aggregate supply curve. And it wasn't a real aggregate. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, better.
I'm just going to shut all this. Give up.
Wait, before you start, one question. How did the open house go?
Oh, good. Thank you for asking. Next year, we'll have your people, your class, come in, 3 or 4 volunteers at a time and speak. Thank you so much for reaching out to them in the coffee break. So yeah, this is the first one face-to-face since COVID.
Nice.
And it was really important. I wasn't sure, but it was really important because they need to see the interaction. That's the big differentiator between us and NYU, Columbia, and Cornell. From what I understand, there is a conspicuous, as I've said repeatedly, but you can feel it here. There is zero attitude, zero here. And somebody in class, in the open house asked me, like, do you ever reject anybody? And I go, yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. The first hint of attitude, I pull this lever, there's a trapdoor that opens up, fall through, they go under the river into Manhattan. So when the guy in the interview, the woman guy says, you know, so tell me why should I join the program? I'm going, excuse me. Then, actually, I'm serious. So that is the interviewing process.
I do the same thing in my interview process for
Yeah, and I don't ask dumb questions like name your strengths and weaknesses. 3 times when you showed leadership. No games. I've had some amazing, really one quick story. There was this guy from Barbados who froze. So lovely, amazing guy, very kind face. You can see that right away. Froze, sweating. And my heart was breaking because like, what is he gonna do in the Ember program? I mean, you know, you can't be shy here. You know that, right? I'm like, man, so I kept trying to talk to him, froze. But so then I thought, what do I do? And on my table upstairs, there's a cricket ball.
Mm-hmm.
My brother gave me that. I used to play. So Barbados, you know, they play cricket there. So I picked up the ball and said, you know what, this is it. Threw it at him. He caught it, wouldn't stop talking. Wouldn't stop talking. Finished the program, did a PhD. He's a professor at Pace or Ryder Baruch in finance. So I see the cricket ball and I remember that story.
Yep, right there.
It's fair game.
Fair game. Fair game. All right, so stay with me now. No more stories. So here's the aggregate supply. This was like a training wheels aggregate supply. And Zanetta, don't worry. You did M, you don't did M, didn't do M. Somebody did taxes. Some people threw in C bar and I bar. I just want to make sure you know how things move. So it's all in good. I'm serious. So don't you worry. I've got it. The answer is I've never seen an expansionary fiscal policy and a contractionary monetary policy ever. So this is new for me. And the statistics are good. We made up 80% of all our jobs lost in COVID. Though inflation is at the highest level in 13 years, the jobs are coming back, the growth is there. We are in terms of mature economy, we are the best. But the messaging, who writes Biden's speeches? Seriously, David, you're connected. Go up the ladder and find out who. Short sentences. The poor guy just reads it out, And now we have the lowest unemployment rate in like 11 years, and we have made up 80% of our job. Like, hey, you're losing it. You lost it. You lost it. Send Jim Smith to the poor man. No, not a good idea.
He might be at a point of no return. It's not good.
Sweet guy. Not Jim Smith, I mean Biden. So here we are. This was the horizontal aggregate supply curve, and this was not a real aggregate supply curve. Stay tuned now for maximum macro. I'm taking you into, I know, not a good afternoon, but I'm taking you into maximum macro. So stay with me now. So, when I met you first, I said there's a classical aggregate supply curve, then there's a Keynesian, and then we did supply sider, and so on. We had all those paradigms. So now we are going into the first real aggregate supply curve, the classical one. And the reason this is going to be so important, I'm going to derive this for you today. This classical model is pre-1930s. And you're thinking, Magdana, enough of this history stuff. This is like before the Great Depression, for crying out loud. Listen very carefully now. This baby here is tied to the supply side model. The supply siders are called the new classical economists. So they are cousins, they are very close cousins. So whatever I do for the classical model is related to the supply sider model. Now, having said that, supply siders have lost their mojo. They have gone. The planet is Keynesian. Even the European Central Bank, Keynesian. Christina Lagarde, she's a disciple of Mario Draghi, deep Keynesian. Supply siders are kind of on the back burner. They're coming out only at night. They only move in groups of 2 and 3. They have insecurity issues. They're off the page right now. Nevertheless, some of the elements are very important, like deregulation, productivity, innovation, which actually is part of Biden's plan too, interestingly. So I'm going to take you there. So let's start with the classical model, this one here. One more time, it's important because it's very closely related to the supply-sider model, which was 1980s. It's coming and going, and it's the supply-sider model is called the new classical model. So let's do the classical model. So Rosa's handed back all her exams.
Yeah.
Anthony, they all got them?
Yep.
Thank you.
We all got an A,
So,
so we hope we get an A in macro too.
well, it's in good hands. Okay, so here we are. Stay with me now. YS is output supply. Aggregate supply. Let's now wake up the aggregate supply. We had a horizontal line which was really an assumption, okay? So now we are waking that up. So output supply is some function of capital and labor. Let's use the German spelling. K is capital. And N is employment. For the very first time, we are looking at employment. Did you hear the participation rate is still not high?
That's the case.
61.6% American participation rate. And
Another question on that.
the American participation rate is at 1973 levels, 61.6%. So even though you say unemployment is low, many people still not in the labor force, and women especially, still not back in.
So, given that fact, right, I'm thinking, how is that factoring into where we're moving, right? And when, with Biden's plan and everything, right, but we are so far behind with the participation rate.
We need to make people comfortable enough to come back to either working or looking for work.
Right, except
So-
one of the reasons is, that, saying the older workforce is retiring, so.
And
they
women,
will
and
become
women are
back.
staying home with the kids because the COVID's still lingering, and the face-to-face workers don't wanna go back. Hospitals and nurses, doctors and nurses don't wanna go back to their jobs, they're dropping out like crazy for healthcare. And so there are a whole bunch of factors hurting the participation rate.
Yeah. But just thinking about what Biden's plan's gonna be, and if there's innovation and increased
No,
productivity.
so what's
and
gonna
all
happen with the
things,
Biden, what Biden plan is like the old Japanese plan. The old Japanese plan, where, as I've mentioned this before, there was a little corner of Japan which was Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, and so on. Heavyweight, high-powered, heavy lifting, global champions. The rest of Japan was average performing. Retail, banking, and so on, not huge productivity. In fact, not productive. But that little core of superstar export companies was doing like a corporate socialism, was doing a subsidy of the rest of Japan. It was a corporate socialist sort of model. The way I see it, Biden's plan, if the whole thing eventually goes out there, is it's going to be healthcare will be this big thing which will be kind of productive, barely productive, and this thing here, we don't know what that is yet. IT, some innovation, new type of battery, electric vehicles, new generation, something to leapfrog China, the next big thing, as big as the internet, maybe bigger. That's the innovation part of his world, is going to subsidize these big healthcare jobs. So most of us will be in healthcare in some form or another, which may make sense in that you can't outsource those jobs. And China is turning away. So the outsourcing story will change. Vietnam is going to be the new China.
Professor, can I just ask one question? Because one of the things like we're facing with our industry is like.
Can you use
price-
louder, please?
Sorry, I said one of the things that we're facing with our industry is all the price reforms and all the things that they're really looking to do right from a pharmaceutical aspect, which is in that healthcare sector.
Yeah, so when Nacho comes next semester, you will look at price controls, price regulation. Actually, Nacho was at Bristol Myers Squibb, believe it or not. So when he was here, he was actually in New Jersey. So he'll get into that.
Okay.
All right, so here
So
we have.
Professor, before you move on, so you're saying that this one small component of Biden's plan is really gonna help the
Innovation,
entire.
productivity.
So now, is the idea here that his plan, the funding in his plan is gonna create the innovation? Like
Wow,
I don't.
that is a Jerry Kim question. That's from a macro perspective in chapter 10, we will see innovation often happens when there's low regulation, low taxes, global movement of brains and capital. Then you step back and the internet happened. So nobody knows what the magic concoction is to give us innovation. Nobody. The South Koreans seem to know it because South Korea has been nailing innovations, but Biden's plan is create that ecosystem which we had when Netscape browser happened and we got the internet.
Okay, so the creation of the ecosystem, now.
Then you
the-
step back and then it's a leap of faith. That is, Sadly, there is no button you can press, okay, innovation on, no. Are our kids as bright as the Chinese kids, as bright as the Indian kids, as bright as the Brazilian kids? This is not a battle for us, it's our kids who will come up perhaps with the next big thing. South Korea is on fire. I mean, they're nailing it year after year. Let me just stay on here, folks. So what we're going to do here is this is going to be held constant right now. So output supply is going to be simply a function of labor. N is number of workers, N is number of workers. So output supply is right now simply a function of employment. So for now, we are holding capital fixed. And we were going to revisit this in chapter 10. We're now in chapter 8. And in chapter 10, we get into issues of productivity, deregulation. Okay, so if you were to plot this, this is employment on this axis, and this is Y, output on this axis, and we've got 0 workers, 1 worker, 2 workers, 3 workers. Some of you have seen this before in economics. You tell me, what does this plot look like? What happens to output? Capital is held fixed. So in this world here, there are 2,500 computers. That's fixed. Capital stock as computers, fixed. 2,500. Now to increase workers, what happens to output?
Increase.
All the way, keep increasing?
Diminishing returns.
You reach total utility, you get a
So it levels off. Why?
Diminishing margin.
Yes, somebody said it.
Yeah,
Yes.
diminishing marginal
Diminishing
return.
returns.
The diminishing marginal returns, when Nacho gets to you next semester, it's called diminishing marginal returns. The marginal increase, so look at this. 1 worker, you make that much Y. And the second worker, well, you make more Y, little less. Third worker, little less, because there are only 250 computers. And you're running out of computers, say N workers, well, you really, all the computers are being used, and so you level off, and it becomes that the increase gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and levels off. And this is known as the economy's production function. So it looks like this. This is Y, this is Y, this is N. It's the law of diminishing marginal returns. The little more, the 1 more worker increases but little less. 1 more worker increases but now by a little less than before. This is called the production function. So this is like shaving example. When we had razor blades, when we had the first safety razor, 1 blade, wow, great shave. Then we had the Gillette Good News, 2 blades. Yeah, better, but you know, not as good as the first safety razor. And 3 blades, 4 blades, 5 blades now. Chic, Gillette, 5 blades, whatever. And the increase in shave is, yeah, there. But after 7 or 8 blades, you're going to max out, right? The increase is not going to be there. It's not like 5 years from now you have 25 blades. Just hold it there and your beard falls off. So there you go, decreasing marginal returns. Store that away, and let's look at the labor market for the first time. All this is new stuff. So this is labor demand. And this is labor supply. And this is N0. And for the very first time in the class, in the course, we are looking at the labor market. You guys, try not to look at the book. Tell me, what's on the vertical axis?
Output?
Wage,
Yeah, price. Usually it's the price.
wage.
So wage. So wage in which currency?
Dollar?
Yeah.
No, it's gonna be in, words
So
per unit.
I said, yeah, I said, James, come do a research project with me, James, and I'll pay you 10 gourds an hour. Gourds is a unit of currency of Haiti. We've talked about this before. So what will James ask me? 10 gourds an hour. James, 10 gourds an hour. Are you impressed?
How many units of a basket can I buy? with
Exactly. What does
10
that
gourds?
mean? So it can't be currency. So what you have here is wage in macro is real wage.
Real,
So
that's how many
in-
baskets you could buy.
Exactly, James. So in macro, it is the real wage. So real wage is little w, that's capital W over P. So capital W is the nominal wage, that's your paycheck. Let's say $100. And the price is the price of that consumption bundle from chapter 2, market basket. And this is 25 per good. So W, capital W is the nominal wage. So it's $100 or 100 gourds or whatever you like. And the price is $25 per good. So what's the real wage now? In units of what? For what? For what? For
Gourds.
Good?
goods.
Good.
Dollars divided by, so basically dollars divided by dollars for good. That's, okay, the dollars cancel out. So for good, so basically the real wage is the purchasing power of, it is the real purchasing power of your paycheck. And remember, when did we see this? We did real money supply, right? Remember that? Real money supply?
Yeah, this was in chapter 6.
Thank you.
Me and Louis are saying we need to start looking at our paychecks.
You know, actually, thank you, Louis. On that note, thank you. So, one comment I want to make is that here's your real wage, W over P, and let's say the company is moving you to San Francisco. You move to the Bay Area, and HR says we're gonna give you a 10% increase in salary, Louis. Maybe a little more expensive there, so we're gonna compensate you. What does Louis do? Louis basically goes and looks at the cost of living index.
Yeah.
He looks at the cost of living index in Bridgewater, where he's working now, let's say. Then he looks at the cost of living index in San Francisco. So Bridgewater is 72, San Francisco is 99. Much more expensive there, right? And so let's say it's at 70 here, it's 90 there, 20 more, 20 points more. So Louis goes back to HR and goes, I need a 20% increase in paycheck, just so I can keep my cost of living the same. And so HR will go, we're giving you 10, man, come on, don't be greedy. And Louis goes, no, not a question of greedy. Here is the evidence. Hard copy, always show hard copy. Always show hard copy, never send a link. Here is the evidence, just to be fair. Otherwise, I'm gonna be worse off. It's 20% more expensive there, cost of living index is higher. You're done, they can't, otherwise you got a grievance. You can file a grievance, so you're done. Easiest way. Now, if it's in the opposite direction, they're giving you 20, yeah, you say nothing. Is Terry Kurtzberg teaching you all these things?
Yes, you need to know this.
I don't even know why negotiations are taught to members. I mean, you can negotiate fine. Anyway, so this is the real wage. Just another real world comment. Inflation is now at a 13-year high in America. Wages have been going up too. Biden talked about wage growth and all that, but the real wage has gone down. And so this is where those elements, where is Steve? Steve, he's not here? Keith.
Keith?
Steve.
Steve? I don't think we have Steve.
We don't have a Steve.
We don't have.
We have a
Steve.
Keith. You have Keith.
I know David.
There's two Keiths.
Yeah, the other Keith.
Yeah. You probably just went to the restroom for a moment. That's-
Oh yeah, no, sorry, he told me. Sorry, I apologize, he told me he has to leave. And so, there was discussion we had in class. So, the real wages have gone down in America because inflation has risen more than the wage gap. Wages have gone up and inflation has risen higher. And so elements of that Build Back Better plan, which people have been slamming as, you know, you want subsidies for this, you want more cash for that, you want help for this, and you want to be, you know, more child stay at home with kids money or whatever, that will help compensate the real wage till the wages rise. And so Biden wants to sell those elements of the big Build Back Better plan that people have been hammering. He should focus on this is an issue in America. That real wages have gone down, and the more inflation rises, this will go up, but not by enough. Anyway, so let's now stay on track. So that's the real wage. Now we are going to build a classical aggregate supply world. Stay with me now. I need all of you at maximum macro. I know you're tired. Stay with me.
You get extra hours.
Sorry. Sorry.
Saying daylight savings.
Oh.
And the implication is?
Said you know you're tired. Good for that 5 hours sleep.
Oh. Me, 3 o'clock, I'm up till 3. Me, it's not.
Take 3.
Yeah,
Do you teach a class in at that time or something?
no.
Not any emails?
No, at overseas Singapore, I run the Singapore program also.
Oh.
Like, I got India to deal with the problems there. Not with the country. Family. And then I read. Not economics. So here we are. Okay, stay with me now. Maximum power, deriving the classical.
We know what to get you for Christmas.
Unbelievable. Deriving the classical aggregate supply. Assumption is a huge assumption, folks. Percentage change in P is equal to percentage change in capital W. This is a huge and powerful assumption. So this is the world before the Great Depression. Fast forwarding, this is the world in Germany. All the supply-sider type countries, France, Japan, the Republicans who are supply-siders, Republicans who are in the supply, the Adam Smith Society, Angela Merkel, Margaret Thatcher, Reaganites. That publication that I wrote for, I forget, the one going to Agent 64. That too, it's on my website. Anyway, so what this assumption says, in this model of inflation is 2%, our salaries go up 2%. If inflation is 9%, our paychecks go up 9%. This is the motherboard, this is the fundamental DNA of this whole model, is this assumption. Okay, 4 diagrams, full power. Here we go, here we are, production function, firewall. Here we
Can I
are.
just ask one question?
Yeah,
But like, now we're seeing, right, we're in the supply side shock. The cost of everything from, cars to even groceries and everything is going up, and my wages aren't correlating.
wow, what did she just say?
She needs more money.
Vicky, what did she say? Basically, she's saying, are you kidding me, Langdana?
I need more money.
Yeah, which paradigm are you in, Langdana? Inflation's going up, I'm barely moving ahead in wages. The only way I can move in wages is what she tells me, is if I quit my job and change, to get 25, 30%, 50% now. But who wants to do that? Well, maybe some of you do, but it's traumatic, it's huge. And so, yes, that's why the supply siders come out only at night. I was at Wawa and I heard something behind Wawa late at night, and I said, what is that noise? And behind some bushes I saw them running around. Did you see that? So here we are. Here we go, labor demand, labor supply, N0, N0, Y0, production function, W0 over P0, labor market, it's all tying in, folks. The real wage is the labor market. This is something I invented called a YY reflector. This is a YY reflector. So basically it will just move the lines from here down there. And in class I talk about how we made periscopes as kids, but everybody looks at me like I'm suddenly speaking medieval Aramaic or some bizarre language. So nobody makes periscopes as kids? Nope.
I think I did.
I did. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Mark,
you put the
Mike,
little air inside the
James?
box.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
In this country you made a periscope? Does anybody else make a periscope in America? In America?
I think when I was little.
Wow, this is so encouraging, because I was led to believe that nobody makes periscopes here.
My child is not yet, I'll tell you that. She's in 4th grade, she has it, yes.
Ah,
Like,
but because of you or because of school?
because of school.
Wow. It's like a special school? Or?
Aren't you Christian's kids in the same school?
I have 3, and my kids are 2. My kids are older than me.
He's got
Angela,
one
like, what
kid.
did I miss? I was confused.
Is Angela creating trouble between you two guys here? Which
No, I
one?
remember they said they were neighbors and
They are
that their
neighbors.
kids were in the same
Where
school.
are you guys?
Wayne. Wayne?
Wayne. Wow. Oh, okay. So this is like a periscope then. Okay, glad we got through that. And this is a firewall here. This is a firewall here. So basically, and here is PY space. In this space, we will derive our first real aggregate supply curve in this course. This is a huge moment that's coming up. It's a milestone. This is the firewall here. And this firewall prevents us from going from here across here. So, firewall. And just a quick story here. Have I told you what happened to me outside the Walmart in Manville? No? When I was in Hillsborough, I was outside the Manville late at night, 10:30, and I was getting out of my car, and an Ember comes to me. I was with my wife, with Mary, and this Ember walks up to me and goes, "Hey, Langdon," and I went, "Hey." And he said, "So, you still using the firewall? And I went, suppose so, yeah. Oh, good man, good. And he walked away. So my wife said, what is that? I said, firewall, but it's like a tiny part of a big course we do. I'm wondering, how is that the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe he works in firewalls at work, maybe he's the deep IT guy, and he thought, oh, firewall. But it was, so my wife said, so what do you do with it? I said, let's just go to Walmart. I'll never forget that. So here we are, PY space. Stay with me, folks. The curve we are deriving is the curve before Keynes, and one more time, the curve the old European Central Bank believes in. The supply siders, Reagan believe in today. So, let's do it.
And this is the first time I see Y is on the that axis. Y is zero. On the production. No, I'm just trying to relate to.
Keep a sharp eye on.
So, no, really is. Whatever we've learned so far, everything is just replaced by N and.
Okay. So let's do this. So let's start deriving. So classical aggregate supply derivation.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Here we are, plot the given point.
No, I'm drinking coffee. I don't need coffee.
And are the vegetarians getting enough food, by the way? No? Is that issue? Really?
Why is it?
No?
Vegetarian Indian?
Vegetarian Indian.
He's pushing his luck with you.
Next
Dal
week,
chawal.
here. Next week the Greeks will go. There's no Greek.
We get
But
some
in general, you have
Portuguese.
something to eat? Yeah. For a given point P0, Y0 in PY space. So here we are. Stay with me now, folks. So please watch. So let's plot this aggregate supply. It's our first real aggregate supply. Here we go. Y0, please look at me. Y0. Y0. And here is the periscope thing. It's a reflector. This is 45 degrees. It's a YY reflector. Y0. Y0. And the initial price is P0. So P0. Here is point number 1.
So why we are doing that with respect to why you're plotting y is y?
Because it makes it just automatic. Right now it's not a big deal, but when we do supply side economics, this comes alive. So basically from here, it's going to drop us down here.
Okay. Oh, that is.
Yeah. It's basically where you're marrying this diagram to this diagram. It's like an adapter. No, that's where the firewall. So for example, if W0 is, let's say, 2, and this is 2. So this could be 6 divided by 2. This could be, the real wage is 3. This is 2 here. So we're just plotting P.
Why does that firewall exist?
Because these axes are different, Louise. This is P here, and this is W over P here. So this is to prevent any mistakes. Lines, if you go, you don't want to remember that you can't just move over here. This is a different axis. So look at this. This is 2. That's this guy. So it's the denominator only here, 2. This number here is actually 3. Okay. Now, let's put this in blue. Now, P0 increases to P1 from 2 to 4. W0 what happens next? You tell me now. So inflation here goes from 2 to 4. What happens in this world, in this model?
So W0 will go down. Labor
Capital
market.
W.
No, it's the right.
W0 will also be 4.
Oh, we assume that W will also increase.
Yes, how
Oh,
much?
okay.
How much? So here we are. This is the motherboard assumption. Your paycheck. This is a very powerful assumption, folks. This is somebody of like, you know, we have Angela going, are you kidding me? So it's an assumption that's powerful and at the same time weak, depending on which model.
So labor market will remain same,
Yes, yes, on fire. And so what you have, and so now, by the classical assumption, of full wage, nominal wage flexibility, where will wages, nominal wages go? Paycheck?
Yeah, it will go 6 to 12.
Yeah, from 6, W0 increases to W1 in the same proportion. So prices doubled, nominal wages doubled. From 6 to 12. So very powerful, but this has actually happened. Inflation goes up 2%, paychecks go up 2%. Inflation goes up 3%, paychecks go up 3%.
Is that the reason that they had those hyperinflation? Because
Not hyperinflation, but before the Great Depression, in the roaring 20s, this is what they saw. Economists saw this.
yeah, because if you continue increasing wage, then you have to bring more money to.
But remember, this inflation here, 2%, 3%, 5%. Remember, hyperinflation, 23 times 10 raised to 28.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different animal.
Professor, what was the difference from the Great Depression times to now? Why the country is not increasing?
Wow. So why? So basically, her question is, how come W is not increasing in proportion? Hang in there, because we need more tools, but very quickly, we have cost pushed many kinds of inflation now. So you had one question in the exam to list 4 kinds of inflation. Remember that? Right? You had cost push, supply chain. You had G going up. You had M going up. You had all the QE from 2008, got the non-sustainability, you have hot capital inflow coming in the country. You have 7 or 8 reasons. We have this perfect storm of inflation coming from 6 or 7 directions, which I've never seen before. And interestingly, many countries are seeing cost push inflation, G going up, demand pull, M going up, demand pull. We are seeing M going down now. So we are the first ones who are cutting back end. The European Central Bank is talking about it too. So we are setting the trend. Okay, take that bubble down. So C-bar and I-bar is very strong, and that's pushing the aggregate demand out too. People are very ebullient right now. Even though the G will not kick in till 2023, Mom and Pop America acts like G is going in tomorrow.
So I'm curious, like, is there any way that we could suffer hyperinflation in the U.S. based on the fact that we're safe haven and we're so tied into the global?
That was Anthony's doomsday apocalyptic scenario that Anthony, you know.
Because what would happen if we experience that everywhere in the world?
So-
You would get hyperinflation, and everyone is dependent on us.
even science fiction writers won't be able to handle that one. Because Isaac Asimov didn't know that much math. Like, that would be like the ultimate. Apocalyptic.
So inflation, we could just get very severe inflation up to like, I don't know what number, but hyper would be like unrealistic because other economies, right?
It would be we go back to the Stone Age. You'll be trading, I'll be trading, I'll be making some stuff and trading with you. Your nice car, no good, can't drive it, no fuel. How is the car doing?
It's okay, probably gonna get rid of it.
He has to, used car prices are up.
I'm gonna go to EV.
And I spoke to you or to your brother?
It's me.
Okay, I'm always never sure if I'm speaking to
You know they don't know I have a brother though.
You told us 7 times.
Yes.
No, you told them, I didn't tell them.
Oh, I told them?
Yeah.
Oh, oops.
And then I think Lewis told you.
Yeah, Lewis, how did Lewis know?
I don't know.
Okay, let me get back on track.
Is he coming to some of the classes? No.
My brother? No.
Is he a lawyer?
Yeah, huh?
Is he a lawyer?
My brother? No, he's actually in this. He's an investor.
So how does Lewis hang out with him?
I don't know. He knows macro pretty well.
Okay, let's get back on track. So what we have here is, so therefore, now the real wage now is P1 over W1, which is 12 divided by 4, which is equal to 3 again. So no change in real wage. So what happens next? So was that like a violation, telling people about his twin brother? Privacy, that's the privacy thing. You know law is,
It's fine.
It's all public, everything's public.
okay, that's little w here, that's little w. So that's this guy here, W0.
Where are these numbers coming from?
That's little w.
What do they
So,
mean?
Anthony, you're asking questions that,
thank you very much. Okay, so what happens now? So step 3, so now where is employment? So employment is where now? So inflation went from 2 to 4, P1 is equal to 4. So inflation's gone from 2 to 4. Wages went from 6 to 12. Where is equilibrium and employment? Look at the diagram. So this is W1, that's equal to 12 divided by 4.
So you're gonna go vertically up, y0.
Where is employment? So where's the N?
N will remain same.
N will remain the same, stays the same. And where is output now?
Y0.
Y0 still the same, nothing has happened, guys. Here, here, and from the production function, output is still the same. Output still at Y0.
Is it the reason that they always assume that it's full employment? Always economy as a full employment?
Yeah, well, basically no one in their world here, there was no such thing as unemployment because that's what they saw. And then Keynes looked out that window and said, guys, throw this model away. I have a new model. So let's close this first. So help me finish the last, so plot it in Py space. So step 4, plot P1 and Y0. What do you get?
Vertical line.
So now vertical line. So let's use red. So now step 4, plot P1, Y0, and PY space. And what happens? So it's now N0, still N0, Y0, still Y0. Come on down, Y0, and here is P1. So here is 0.4. It's still Y0, and we join them. And here we have, folks, a classical aggregate supply. So vertical line, that's the line I showed you that the European Central Bank had. So this is the world before Keynes, classical aggregate supply. So join to P0, Y0, and obtain. This is the classical curve in Adam Smith's time, Ricardo, Hume, people like that. Classical aggregate supply. Questions?
So then how they would ever be able to manage inflation?
Wow. Who can answer that? Why, forget inflation, how about output?
Yeah, means
They didn't. They did not. There was no, they had no role. There was no G, no M. I'm going to take you there right now. But before that, perfectly timed question, by the way. Before that, any questions about the derivation? The fundamental DNA here is that inflation and nominal wages, your paycheck, are fully flexible. They are just in proportion. It's a very tenuous assumption. It's based on observation. There is no, and typically today in the modern world, this will hold true in maybe pharma. You know, you leave, forget the supply shock today, but if inflation is 3%, you will tell BMS, hey, I'm going to go to Novartis, and you will get your 3%. Or I'm going to leave JP Morgan and go to somebody else, UBS. 2%, 2.5%. So at a higher skill level, excuse me, it holds in mature economies where workers have market power. Blue collar workers, manufacturing workers, not so much. With you guys, something like this may hold.
So is, and that kind of leads to the question I was going to ask you, like, is because this is definitely rooted in like, a classist perspective, right, where the working person doesn't seem to have a whole lot of options but to toil in to support this forever rising wages of the wealthy. So is that part of like the foundation of this? Is that like, you know, we don't have unemployment because everyone has to work to support our ongoing quest for inflation-proof incomes?
Well, for you, we're going to do this ISLM, we're going to do maximum macro. Then I'm going to show you properly why this broke down. This was fine for the roaring 20s, when everything was hunky-dory. And remember, the roaring 20s was an age of innovation.
Wasn't that
For the
because they
first-
didn't think there was no such thing as unemployment at that time, really? Like,
Sorry, Christian?
Wasn't that because they thought there was full employment or no
Yeah.
such thing as unemployment
There's
at that
no
time?
such thing as unemployment, but it was a good era, there was innovation happening, but I'm going to take you there. And then we will see in the Great Depression, when prices fell by 30%, minus 30, when P fell, what should happen to wages here according to this assumption? They should go down by 30%, right? And that's when I'm going to show you, we made 4 huge mistakes. Poor Herbert Hoover. Sweet man, great engineer, no macro. And he prevented WT. He made 4 mistakes, but this was one of them. And this whole paradigm blows up. So I'm going to take you there. So this is it's like a perfect photo in the 20s, and then we'll revisit this in the 80s when the Reaganites come and say, all right, we're going to make this more sophisticated. Now we're going to show you how we can move this baby out. Move this out. Right now you will see the classical guys have no way to move this baby. The Reaganites, supply siders, the Thatcherites, deregulation, lower corporate taxes, innovation, productivity. The most terrifying sentence in the English language, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. So I'm here. So I'm taking you then chapter 10. Okay. Stay with me now, maximum macro. So let's do an ISLM. I'll do G for you in this word. Then you do M. Finally have the whole model ready to go.
Professor, what is deriving of this last graph, the supply stays same irrespective of the price structure.
And please understand that this Y0 here, this is a rate of growth, okay? So this Y0 is like 2.3%. So it's growing at a fixed rate. It's not like 26 billion.
Okay.
It's a, these are all these axes, these are all rates of growth. Okay, so you wonder, well, it can't be the same number every year. No. It's the slope is 2.3% or what it is, growing. So when the rate of growth increases, then you go to 1. These are percentage. Okay. All right, so I'll do the first one for you. Let's do G in a classical model. So here we have firewall, production function, everything here, folks. For the first time, we're looking at labor. Stay with me now. Don't lose power, folks. I need you. I know you're tired. It's the goods market. C0 plus I0 plus G0. That's the goods market. Here we are, for the first time, a real aggregate supply curve, classical aggregate supply. Here's aggregate demand, AD0, here's P0, Y0. And here is N0 employment. N0, and you are right. Y has suddenly gone into the y-axis. So Y0, that's why that firewall is so important. You can't just slide across. You can't slide across. Here we are, capital W0 over P0. W0.
In the model where you control prices, or actually, let me rephrase it. Is there any way that you can draw a vertical AE, like have an AS, like exponential curve with the AS, and then have like a vertical AD cutting through it? Is there any way of doing that?
No, for you, Eugene, the AD actually, if you want to look at the AD really is a rectangular hyperbola. The rectangular hyperbola goes, that's what an AD looks like.
Yeah, what if I'm controlling prices?
So now remember, prices are endogenous.
I know, I'm saying, what if I'm in a society and the society
Oh,
is trying to
no.
control the prices?
So you want to put like a price ceiling or a price floor or something?
Yeah, like pre-German, like when the levels were not German. Would it be a vertical AD?
No, basically, so for that, so if you were having an aggregate demand aggregate supply. So when you have an artificial price, that's like a horizontal line. So, like.
Horizontal AS?
No, it's just the price is equal to 5 throughout the system. And so basically that's what I showed you in class. That's the excess demand, that's the black market that was in Ludwig Erhard's time. That's what we did in class last time when I was on. Okay, let's do this, folks. I'm increasing G. This is good G, whatever you want to call it. And you know the survival guide, you just did an exam. Take me through this. You talk and I will draw.
AS to the right.
So remember,
It
AS,
moves up or right.
remember the first move is in IY space. Come on, which curve? So let's do it.
IS
please.
IS moves up.
IS moves to the right.
So IS,
Moves up or to the right, yep.
thank you. Increase AG. Okay, so this is move 1, IS prime. And just kind of slice through a million lines. Okay, so now I'm going to magnify this diagram down here because this is supremely important. So I'm going to supersize this baby down. So nice large diagram. Here's aggregate supply. Here's Y0. Here's aggregate demand. 0. P0. Okay. So just watch me now, please, after you finish copying. Just look at me, please. So, please look at me. So last class, today, during the exam and before the exam, we had a horizontal aggregate supply, right? So we had a curve that looked like this. Yes, no?
Yeah.
Yes, that was assumption.
Yeah, that was assumed. And then when IS moves up, you had Y1, this is Y0, and so we had it dangled out on a string, and that's what we had in the exam, right folks?
Yes.
That was the nice multiplier effect from Y0 to Y1. We all remember that, right? Okay, so now please look at me. So that was a curve that was fictitious. It was just for class, for pedagogic reasons, for the exam. Now please watch. That baby is gone. Just please watch me. That is gone. And instead, please watch me. We have that here to here. So that is the big difference. There is no Y1. We've gone from here, E0, Y0 to P1, Y0. So that's the aggregate supply curve. There is no multiplier effect. That baby's gone. It's that now. So that's one reason I wanted to supersize it. So basically, you move this dotted line over like that. You dangle over like that. Here we are. This is step 2. Step 2. So there is no Y1. No increase, no multiplier effect. Very powerful. So
then why we are considering I star to move up? Because it depends on the G, right? Because that's the equation, right? You know, C bar plus I bar plus G by F. So that's the, because of that we are considering that IS will move up. Now we are saying that, oh, it has nothing to do with the Y
So, hang on, let me just show you. So there's no change in Y. So now, look at your survival guide. What did the survival guide say? AD dangles out. Now it asks you, has P changed? What's happened now finally? P has changed. So step 3, has P changed? And yes, finally, P has changed. So what does the survival guide say now? When P has changed, what do? Which curve wakes up?
LM.
LM. Remember that? LM. And which way does LM move when P goes up?
To the left.
To the left. Yes. So what you have, and so LM adjusts now. So as P goes up, LM to the left. M over P, all that stuff. And you folks tell me what happens up there. Remember, Y0, Y0, Y0 has to line up. Y0, Y0, Y0 has to line up. P has gone up. So what happens, LM, now we know that LM is going to move back to the left. So remember, it has to line up with Y0, Y0, Y0. Take the Y0 line up.
So LM to move up
Where?
to Y2.
Yes. Wow. Here we are.
Oh.
Step 3. So LM to the left. As inflation increases to P1. So P1 could be 3%, going back to what I told Deepthi. P0 could be 1%, these are all percentages. Y0 could be 3.2%, these are all percentages. And so here we are, Y0, 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 interest rate to I1. And nothing happens to Y. Nothing happens to Y. No multiplier effect. It's the most powerful result. Keynesians hate it because these guys are going, no, stop doing G. So the Germans are telling the Greeks, stop doing G. They are like that. And the Greeks are saying, what the heck are you talking about? Because Greeks are Keynesians. I'm going to show you that. South of Europe is Keynesian. Greeks, Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese, Keynesians. French and Germans, Belgians, like that. And so that's the problem in the Eurozone. From 1996, we've been talking about that. So, anyway, let's finish this. So, LM adjusts, Y0, Y0, Y0 lines up. Interest rates go to I1. Let's close this now. What happens here?
Just should remain same.
Come on. What happens in the labor market?
We just rise at the same rate.
Same, right?
Right, exactly. And so in the labor market, so now step 5, what is it?
No change.
4. Step 4. In labor market, W0 as P0 increases to P1. What happens to W0?
Increases to W.
Increases to W1 in what proportion?
Same proportion.
In the same proportion. This is that stability pact. Well, this is where the stability pact comes from. Remember that?
Yeah.
In the Eurozone, don't do don't do G. 3%. Otherwise you get fined. That's where this comes from. Because they don't believe in G. In the same proportion. And therefore, W0 is W0, P0 equal to W1 over P1. So no change. So here we have W1 over P1. What happens in the goods market?
No change.
Is there any change in C? Is this C? Any change in C?
No, there is no.
Yeah.
Why?
There's no
Why
change
no
in
change
Y.
in C?
No.
Wow, who said that? Say it again. C is equal to C bar plus BY. And has Y changed here?
No.
No, so no change in C. So let's write down. In the goods market, no change in C. Consumption, no change. C is C bar plus BY. And since Y did not change, no change in C. Still at C0. So this is C0. What happens to I, capital investments?
Goes down.
Wow.
Interest rate
Goes up or down?
Down.
Goes down. Why?
Interest rate.
Yes. So I1 less than I0 since interest rates increased to little I1. So what is this known as?
Crowding out.
Crowding out. Capital investment got crowded out, squeezed out. Because interest rates have been pushed up by government borrowing here in this world. So I1 is down. And what's happened to G? G1 has gone up by policy. So it cancels out completely. And G0 increases to G1 by policy. And so it's completely cancelled out. Increase in G comes at the expense of private capital investment in this world. This is known as 100% crowding out. Very powerful. Keynesians hate it. They're saying, what nonsense. You really believe that good G is not going to jumpstart growth. And these guys go, in a world when P and nominal wages are fully flexible, no. There you have it. So there's no role for G. In the classical world before Keynes, G does nothing. Let's summarize the results. What's the only thing that comes out of all this?
Interest rates increase.
What's the biggest result here, which is actually a non-result? So let's put the
The
results
demand
down.
moves to the right. No one. Capital investment.
The biggest result is a non-result. So result of change in G. What's the biggest one?
Interest rates.
Yeah, bigger than that. Wow, louder, Vicky. No multiplier effect. No multiplier effect. Very powerful. This is where the Stability Pact, come make a note. This is where the European Stability Pact comes from. This is where the Northern Europeans tell the Southern Europeans, stop it. Austerity measures. Get to know the word. Austerity measures. Stop doing subsidies and G here and G there. Who the heck retires at 45? You know, and go ahead, make some Greek yogurt, whatever you do down in Greece. And the Greeks go, excuse me, you don't tell us, okay, don't tell us what to do. Okay, I remember what my grandfather told me, what happened in 1943. Don't you start on me. Here we go again. With any luck, if we are there, we will see where the guy jumped off the Acropolis after wrapping the flag around him. So here we have the next big result. Big one, come on.
Interest rates increase.
Interest rates bigger than that.
Inflation.
only get inflation. Another one. I1 less than I0, 100% crowding out. Due to higher interest rates. Come on, another very big one. Sorry, I forgot that.
No, but budget deficit is increasing with you.
Yeah. What about jobs? It's a big one. No change in employment. This should have been up there. Sorry. No change in employment. So don't mess with Milton Friedman in the 60s when he won his Nobel Prize. Milton Friedman, by the way, was one of the fathers of this vertical aggregate supply curve. Rutgers' greatest product. And in the 60s, when it was a world of Keynesians, the whole planet was Keynesian. It was Nobel Prize acceptance speech. It was the lecture called The Role of Monetary Policy. You should look it up. He said, don't try messing with M. There's nothing good that can come from M or G. Just don't, you can't change Y in the long run with M or G, so. And how about a deep click? Deep click, what happens to long-term interest rates?
Increase.
Why?
Inflation.
Inflation is coming now or expected? So the long end of the yield curve. I love the article today because there was a long bond question in there too. Increases with expectations of inflation. Of future inflation. Because from P0 to P1, it's not going to happen in a day. From black to blue, it might be 6 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 months, 4 months, a year. Look at this Biden stimulus plan. It's going to be 2023, late 22. So long end's going to start going up. Yes.
Are we saying, Professor, that because government spends in infrastructure, that doesn't change employment at all?
So keep in mind, this is the rate of growth of employment. So this is the rate of growth. So if it's growing at 3.1%, so it's growing, but the rate of growth is the rate, yeah, thank you. So that's the thing, and so I want to be careful. It's not like 6.2 million were working. No, they were growing. Employment is growing at that rate. So when we change N from N0 to N1 in macro, it's 3.1% to 3.8%.
Professor, this is a dismal, depressing model, right? Like if there's a developing country, there's no way they can increase their standard of living.
Stop, right there. You will see that for you, this is not an India, China, Brazil, Argentina story. So thank you for bringing this up. In emerging economies, and you're way ahead of the class, but in emerging economies, if inflation is, say, 5%, do you think wages are going to go up 5%? No. In a poor country, if inflation is 5% and the workers in India go to the boss and go, excuse me, here is today's, Times of India, it says 5%, boss. We need 5%. The employer will go, come here, you, get out of here. Get out of There are 6.3 million people who will take your job. You don't want it? Get out of here. So they might get 0.5%, 2%, whatever. So in an emerging economy, for this, they are Keynesians. And for a world like this, percentage change in P is not equal to percentage change in W. So if inflation is 4% in an emerging economy, wages might go up 1 or 2%.
So
But
under this
hang on just a
model-
second, if inflation is 4% and wages go up 4%, whoop. So there are two kinds of people in the world. You look like this, or you look like that.
So under this model, does output never increase? Do people never get richer or better off?
This timing is so beautiful. So in this world here, the classical economists had a name for this. They said N0 cannot be changed. So they said they called N0 and Y0. Your comment is beautifully timed. So the classical economists called N0 and Y0 the natural rates. So the classical economists call N0 and Y0. Keep in mind again, these are rates of growth. Right? N0 is 2.9%, Y0 could be 3.1%. Call them the natural rates. In other words, you cannot change them. Almost like God given, exogenously given, leave it alone. And so,
Not true.
That's
Yeah.
unrealistic, right?
and so given, cannot be changed.
But doesn't that kind of also back to like,
Just give me a second, cannot be changed. And this is why these economies were called laissez-faire. Is the spelling right?
It's SSEC actually.
Thank you. Laissez-faire economies, thank you. Which means leave alone, just leave it alone. There's nothing you can do. Y0 is Y0. What is this Keynes guy talking about? That you can increase G and have a multiplier. What the heck is he talking about? You can't. Keynes said, excuse me, it's not vertical anymore. It's coming next class, next week. So in this world here, there's no role, therefore, no role. And so again, today, fast forwarding, this is the stability pact. And the southern Greeks and Spaniards and Italians are going, what the heck are you mean? What is that? Of course there's a role for G. No, not for those guys who are in that vertical aggregate supply. So no role for G. And we're going to do one more now. And or for M. So we're going to do, you guys are going to do the M in class. So, very powerful. And these are the guys who were flipping out when Obama was doing G. And some of them are still flipping out when Biden's doing G, like, what is he doing? But they are out, they're off the page right now. Supply siders are on the back foot. This is the Keynesian plan.
So Professor, the adaptation to a certain model is only by trial and error, or like how why are Germans believing in classic model and why is they believing in Keynesian?
So her question is, why are the Germans so, because the thing is though, it's an assumption, Deepti. If you are in a world where if inflation is 2% and wages in Germany go up 2%, well,
So that's the policy.
that's not a point saying, it's an empirical observation. So if you have, whoop, the people saying 2%, you're done. And on top of that, Germans remember the hyperinflation, they hate M. So superimpose on that the fear of the hyperinflation and like, oh my God, no M, you're going to do M right now. No M, are you kidding me? No. And then suddenly, one day, an Italian comes in to run the European Central Bank. Horror of horrors. Mario Draghi, an Italian, deep Keynesian, who loves GNM. QE, not just M, QE. Germans were just convulsing. They were apoplectic, they had fits. And now comes Christina Lagarde, a Swiss, a disciple of Mario Draghi, Keynesian. So the European Central Bank is in a mess right now.
So were the Germans always supply siders? Because they rebuilt themselves after the war too, right? So they would have been Keynesian.
So they come from the Austrian school. Remember, the hyperinflation has influenced them severely, that generation. I mean, 2% inflation, they're awake at night. 2.1, oh my gosh, emergency meeting.
But they've seen an increase in Y from the 1950s to now, so they've clearly achieved. Oh, they're just being shifting the supply. Okay.
Yeah, and please don't put adjust, it's a really big deal. Yeah, so, the masterpieces, the master's training, the skills, they have a very interesting model. Skills-based educations, lots more skills-based educations in Germany. But they are in trouble now. Okay, let's do M. Stay with me. You guys are doing M. You want to set this up? Close all textbooks. Close all textbooks, please. Endogenously work in groups. Do M. So let's set it up for you.
M in which direction?
We're going to jump start. So, not quite. Not quite. Let me first set it up for you. Let me set it up for you. So here we are. Close all textbooks. Here we go. If you can do all of this on the back of your business card, then you are ready for the final exam.
So can we bring a business card to the exam?
Actually, you can. There was somebody from Prudential who handed me his final exam. Just gave me his business card. I said, "What's this?" Turn it around. Turn it around. Salt water. Salt. Liquid. Drops of liquid. Warm liquid.
Final looks easy.
So I have it. Remind me to bring it. I'll bring it to show you. I save everything. Here we are. Let's call this Y low. Every time when I was teaching in China, when I did Y low, there'd be all kinds of giggling in the class because low Y means foreigners with big noses. So every time, so low Y low. C0 plus I0 plus G0. The main street in Shanghai is called Y High Low, Y High. Perfect name, Y High. Y High. See, it's all natural. Are you a Shanghai person? So Y Low. Aggregate supply. Classical. Here we are. Close all books, please. Y low. And so, in desperation, the central bank increases M. So, central bank increases M, decreases interest rates to frantically, let's get some drama going, to frantically jumpstart growth. And follow the survival guide. You need to be surprised, folks. It's actually trivial now. You know, after building the ISLM, it's a piece of cake. So here we are, N0, Y0, labor demand, labor supply, this is N low. So this economy is sick, W0, P0, W0. Okay, so go for it. So increase in M, and I'll give you about 5-10 minutes. Endogenously work in groups, turn to your neighbors, go turn around, deeply maybe, drop, maybe, blend into the folks in the back. Louise, Wendy, maybe you can turn around.
No, I can't.